Back to this big story right now and the growing debate and new questions that are arising about what the White House did or did not know surrounding the deaths of 4 Americans in Libya. One lawmaker says that what we have heard tells us plenty, in his opinion, about the administration's response. Here's Senator Lindsey Graham on CBS's Face the Nation.
Either they're misleading the American people or incredibly incompetent. There was no way, with anybody looking at all, that you could believe 5 days after the attack it was based on a riot that never occurred. There were no riot at all. So to say that, you're either very incompetent or you're misleading.
KT McFarland is a Fox News national security analyst. Rich Lowry is Fox News contributor and the editor of the National Review. KT, let me start with you on this, because I know that you have worked in the White House during a number of these types of situations.
Right.
And you have said that you find this completely implausible, that the president, the vice president, and members of the administration could possibly have been unaware of the circumstances on the ground during this attack.
Yeah, if the vice president and the president were unaware of the situation on the ground when the attack occurred, if they were unaware of the request for additional security, guess what? They were probably the only 2 people in the White House who were unaware of that. You know, the State Department officials have testified under oath that they knew that this was not a terror, this was not a demonstration that got out of hand. So why did the White House spin a totally different story? They made a fairy tale up out of whole cloth, and now they've been caught, and now what are they doing? They're busy blaming everybody in sight, blaming the State Department, blaming the intelligence community, when in fact, my guess is the blame is right in the White House.
Let's listen to David Axelrod as well from this weekend, and then we'll go to Rich.
Anyone would have said the same thing that she said, because that was the intelligence we were receiving. And it's not a matter of blaming. That's just the fact. Sometimes intelligence has to catch up with the reality on the ground. This was one of those cases.
Rich, is this one of those cases?
Well, I'd really like to see Susan Rice under oath about this, Martha. Because a key question for me, who briefed her? Because you have State Department officials now saying, we never thought it was a spontaneous protest. We had people monitoring it in real time, and there was never any protest. Yet you have our ambassador to the UN going out there and saying something that apparently her own department didn't believe, but conveniently reflected the White House's spin on this. So who briefed her prior to those Sunday shows? Did she go on without talking to David Fluff or without talking to David Axelrod? I think that's a key question in this whole thing.
It is so surprising when you think about the people that we have not heard from in this whole thing. I mean, we all understand that you have to have an investigation ongoing. But let's be serious here for a moment. In terms of John Brennan, for example, just one example, the chief of counterterrorism advisor to the president. Where has he been in this, KT, and who else would you expect in normal circumstances that you'd be hearing from instead of 3 spokespeople for the campaign?
Well, this is, in fact, now you realize why it's so fishy. Why did the UN ambassador go out and talk about it on all the Sunday talk shows? She was put out there by the White House. Why? Well, it shouldn't have been her. The UN ambassador has no responsibility for security of embassies overseas. That's the State Department. No responsibility for intelligence. That's the CIA. No responsibility for Marine Guards. That's the Defense Department. I checked on the schedules of all of those officials who should have been the ones to go before the talk shows. Guess what? They were all available. They were all in Washington. They all could have testified. Why didn't they do it? I think because they weren't willing to say something that they knew was a complete fairy tale.
So, all right, let's go to the political side of this for a minute, Rich, because the White House has accused the Romney administration of politicizing all of this and, you know, really got into it. David Axelrod and Chris Wallace yesterday over the suggestion that Chris should not be asking questions about this because we all just need to sort of be quiet and wait for this investigation to play out.
Well, I think the administration has been politicizing it. I mean, what is politicizing it if not going out there and telling, as KT says, a complete fairy tale? And they're doing it for explicitly political reasons, because it would be so inconvenient to admit that this wasn't about a video. It was a terrorist assault on our consulate in Benghazi on September 11th, clearly an act of revenge, just weeks after Democrats had basically portrayed the country as safe from terror forevermore because our wonderful commander-in-chief had killed bin Laden. So it's the White House that has clearly been politicizing this. And I think, if anything, Mitt Romney has been too gentle with them.
And what does it say about the administration's policy overall, KT? Because when you put all the pieces back together, you've got the Cairo situation where the embassy is overrun, the embassy flag is taken down, and a jihadist flag is put up in its place, and the government stands by and allows that to happen in Cairo. And then you switch over to this situation in Benghazi, and it just brings into question the larger foreign policy of the administration, which it seems no one wants to talk about.
Well, and Martha, you've absolutely hit on the core of the problem. 5 days before the attack on September 11th, the president was at the Democratic convention basically saying, bin Laden is dead, al-Qaeda's on the ropes, al-Qaeda's finished. Hard to think al-Qaeda's finished if they were able to pull off an attack like that in Benghazi. It's, in fact, just the opposite. People that I've talked to, the intelligence community, all feels that al-Qaeda, in fact, is on the upswing, that it, in fact, is making a real presence in eastern Libya. So it's hard to say that it's dead. And the thing about this, though, in the end, Martha, it's all going to come out. Because the community, the intelligence and the State Department communities, the career professionals are not going to take this. They're not going to. They're going to get out from under that bus, and they're going to come out and say that.
Yeah, all this means there'll be more leaks and more backfire.
And we're going to hear about it tomorrow night. And there are several news organizations, including this one, who are very much on this story. And as Britt Hume pointed out earlier, will stay that way. So thank you so much to both of you, KT, Rich. See you later.